Boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, leaving it up to the #1 award winner for not taking credit for your own failures and for your own responsibilities for the things you created, for the things you were involved in, and the things you absolutely destroyed and devastated. Ladies and gentlemen, we are all very well aware of the Star Wars out there, the Disney Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser turning into an absolute abysmal failure. We are very well aware that literally less than a year after it had already been opened, that it had been announced that they were going to be ending the cruises, that the people were no longer be going, and they were going to completely and totally shutter it. And there's even rumors going around right now that they're going to completely and totally demolish this building and try to erase this stain and this absolute abysmal failure from all of the record that Disney Star Wars possibly could. Well, ladies and gentlemen, according to one of WDW Pro's wonderful sources out there, ladies and gentlemen, we have now some inside information as to who inside of the Walt Disney Company is getting the blame. And ladies and gentlemen, color me shocked right there. Management is not taking responsibility in any way, shape, or form. No, of course, ladies and gentlemen, they are blaming the employees, that it's all their fault, that it had nothing to do with the people that, the people that were the head designers, it had nothing to do with the people that were in charge of the actual parks and all of that kind of stuff. It had nothing to do with Bob Iger or Kathleen Kennedy or anybody over at Lucasfilm. No, 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 ladies and gentlemen, it's all Florida's fault and the employees over at Florida's fault. It's all their fault. They are the boogeyman. They're the reason this miserably abysmal $500 million, probably more like $1 billion failure happened. Because of course, nobody inside of the Walt Disney Company, especially in their executive departments in any way, shape, or form, the producers, any of these people that are supposed to be running the shows, no, they cannot possibly take responsibility for anything. They have to pass the buck and pass the blame off to somebody else. And it looks like, according to the rumor mill, according to WDW Pro's very reliable sources, that's exactly what they've done. And color us shocked there. It's just another day in NY where Disney doesn't take responsibility for their absolute abysmal failures and for all of the mistakes they've made. So let's check out this article from thatparkplace.com. Shout out to them and WDW Pro and all of the rest of them for all of their wonderful inside sources information. That's one of the many reasons why we love our dear sweet That Park Place and WDW Pro. So Disney allegedly blames Florida for the failure of the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser. Oh, color us shocked there, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe if you have not already. When things do not go well in a spectacular fashion, why not blame your frequent enemies? The Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser was an unmitigated disaster for the Walt Disney Company and Disney Parks. That's an understatement, WDW Pro. Located just outside Hollywood Studios theme park in the Walt Disney World, the ultra-pricey Star Wars LARPing experience failed to last even 2 years before it had so few guests that it simply could not be sustained. And honestly, I thought it was one of the things that they would try to just let that thing hemorrhage money and just keep dumping cash into it for years before they finally admitted defeat, and it just blew us all away. How quickly they admitted that the Galactic Star Cruiser was an abysmal failure and they had to shutter its doors. It just boggles my mind. As a result, the entire experience had to be shuttered. Parts of the hotel were soon appearing at Disneyland Resort for sale as souvenir specials. Oh, yes. It's all for sale, boys and girls. It's a fire sale. Let us scrape any last penny we can out of this absolute abysmal failure. Please buy something. Now, an inside source is coming forward with information that points to just how Disney is handling the horrible and very public black eye. According to this person with knowledge of intercommunications, president of Disney Parks and Experiences, Josh Demora, is well aware that the general public was not keen on the experience. It did not poll well, it was not received well, and all those who came aboard the stationary cruise experience often enjoyed the Halcyon, that demographic was far too tiny to sustain the attraction. And obviously we know about all of the reviewers out there, all the YouTubers, all the internet personalities out there, all the access media people that got early access to this and were just singing its praises from the high heavens. Oh, it's so amazing, it's so wonderful, it's so immersive. And then, yeah, because of the absolutely insane, outrageous price, and even some of the access media folks had to admit that the price was just outrageous for a family of four, like $6,000 for essentially what was like a 2-night, day and a half stay. I mean, it was just absolute failure, it was a bad idea right from the very beginning. But hey, that's what the Walt Disney Company is full of these days. Attempting to change the hotel from sequel trilogy Star Wars experience to something based on either the New Republic or the original trilogy was scuttled. There was no good way to salvage the attempt without likewise putting another PR disaster square on the face of Lucasfilm and Star Wars. After all, which is worse, declaring that your hotel didn't work or declaring that your Star Wars efforts for the last decade are ultra unpopular? And of course, Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and everybody else over there at Lucasfilm that has been involved with the absolute abysmal failure that was the Disney Star Wars trilogy and the rest of all of the Disney Star Wars abysmal, disastrous dumpster fires that they have produced ever since. Of course, they couldn't possibly admit the fact that they had made mistakes, that they had failed miserably in trying to continue on with George Lucas's legacy. No, 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 boys and girls. Their ego and their narcissism would simply not allow that. So, of course, let's blame someone who can't actually push back or fight for themselves. Now, internally, it was time for the blame game once the last voyage was complete. As we reported previously, Lucasfilm didn't want the blame on them. Of course not. It's not Kathleen Kennedy's fault. It's not that any of these new characters that she oversaw and helped create and helped approve of, anything like that. It's not like they're all miserable failures that the fans completely and totally reject and nobody wants anything to do with. It's not like all of their toys are literally on fire sale at almost every Ollie's in the United States. No, 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 no. It's not that. No, no. It can't possibly be that. Neither did Walt Disney Imagineering have a desire to take the fall, even though they're literally the Imagineering people. And it's, what happened to that buck stops with the boss kind of situation? I guess that's not the way it works inside of the Walt Disney Company. And of course, Disney Parks and Experiences were very interested in having this placed upon their shoulders. So who could be that gets the whipping boy and whipping girl status? According to the source, it's Walt Disney's Imagineering Florida that is taking the blame and the impact. Yes, yes, yes. It's not the executives that this was all of their idea, not the people that came up with all of this. No, no, no. It's the low-level Imagineering Florida employees that are the problem. Former Disney CEO Bob Chapek had seen the value in the Walt Disney World Resort. It's the crown jewel in all of Disney's profit-successful endeavors. The final dream of Walt himself drives an incredible 1/3 of all the Walt Disney Company's profits as of our most recent public records for 2023. It therefore made all the sense in the world to Mr. Chapek that Disney should send more Imagineers to the resort and create all sorts of unique experiences there. Unfortunately for him and Central Florida, Walt Disney Imagineering, under the DIE guidance of Carmen Smith, has become a hotbed of partisanship. As a result, WDI folks working in Glendale were so angry that they threatened to quit rather than be forced to live in a red state like Florida. Oh, you poor things! I know freedom just really sucks. Enjoy California. Ultimately, the entire plan had to be thrown away, just like the Star Wars Hotel. Yeah, they literally made such a big stink about it that they made it such a stink to their bosses that their bosses relented, cowered down before them, and did not force them to move. Absolute insanity. How sad is that when literally the inmates are running the asylum over at the Walt Disney Company? Bob Iger is back, of course, and he has different thoughts on Disney Florida, parks, and more. According to our source, now that Iger is fully in control again, as if he ever wasn't, exactly. The guy never even gave up the C-suite office, the executive suite office, to Bob Chapek. No, no, no. Iger controlled it forever, the entire time. Power shifted dramatically to WDI Glendale and away from Florida. The Floridian workers who were given the task of creating a 2-day sequel trilogy hotel experience are blamed because relatively nobody wanted a sequel trilogy extravaganza. Had they been allowed to create a hotel experience centered on Luke saving the audience from Darth Vader, it may have succeeded beyond Disney's wildest imaginations. But of course, WDI Florida was the supplier, not the client. Exactly, which is why it's ridiculous to try to blame this on them. This wasn't their idea. They just executed your orders, Walt Disney Company. As a result of all of this, internally, it isn't Lucasfilm or Josh D'Amore that's taking the blame for the Star Wars Hotel. It isn't Bob Iger, color us shocked there. It isn't even Imagineering at large. Rather, according to the highly placed source, it is the state of Florida and the Imagineers who live there who are at fault. Oh yes, because all of our A-game Imagineers from California simply refused to move to Florida, so they couldn't make anything better. They couldn't do their job. So it's all the Imagineers in Florida's fault. They just suck so bad because they live in a red state. They chose to live in a red state with all of this freedom and with all of these lackluster rules and being able to go out there and just do what they want and live freely and be able to have a good time and not have these outrageous taxes and all these outrageous regulations in California. No, 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 no. It's all of their fault. Those evil red state people. And that means Hollywood and Bob Iger ultimately will use this opportunity to have even more control over attractions in the future. It doesn't matter that they were always at fault for this from the very beginning. And yes, by all means, go right ahead, Bob Iger. By all means, please. Clench your fist tighter and tighter around every aspect of the Walt Disney Company. And as you tighten your fist, more and more fans will slip through your fingers. Because Bob Iger, yes, Walt Disney Company under its current leadership, yes, You are the Empire. You are the evil folks out there. Bob Iger, you're nothing more than Emperor Palpatine. Kathleen Kennedy is nothing more than Darth Vader. You are the villains of this story. And as you continue to tighten your grip, as you continue to refuse to accept responsibility for the mistakes you've made and go in any kind of new direction whatsoever, you will continue to fail. You will continue to fall. You will continue to destroy the legacy of George Lucas and all of the wonderful, heartfelt memories that so many fans out there had with Star Wars that gave them any kind of hope whatsoever, or gave them any kind of benefit of the doubt with what you would do. You're going to continue to destroy that. There will be no Star Wars fans left when you are done. Yes, there will always be fans of us out there with classics of the original expanded universe stuff. It's not Legends, it's expanded universe. It is canon. Disney Star Wars is not canon. And we will have years ahead of us going back and reading that stories and all of the wonderful fan stuff that will be made out there. All of those wonderful fan movies and those fan edits that will come out will continue our love for Star Wars going forward. But there is no love for Disney Star Wars anymore outside of the access media and the absolute shills out there who cannot help but snort every single little ounce of pixie dust that the Walt Disney Company shoots out of their rear ends. So go ahead. Continue, Bob Iger. Take more control. Be in charge of even more things. Tighten that grip and watch more fans and even more money slip out of your fingers. Because I'm here for it, Bob Iger. The shareholders revolt failed, so now I guess it's just bankruptcy. Because I don't know any way we're ever going to get any of our beloved IPs back, and before we'll ever see any kind of good Star Wars ever again. It's not going to be under the control of Disney's Bob Iger, and it certainly isn't going to come from anybody over at Lucasfilm anytime soon. So go ahead, burn Disney Star Wars, burn, because eventually it'll come right back into the fans' hands, and then eventually, maybe, just maybe, we'll get some good Star Wars again. But Disney Star Wars has never been, nor will it ever be, Star Wars, and especially not any way, shape, or form good Star Wars.